الله غفور الله رحيم الله يحب المحسنين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our program Reflections on the Glorious Quran, a program in which we explore the meanings of the Quran and we try to understand the message of this great book, the message that is life transforming, a message that will change our lives for the better. And in today's lesson, I want to continue from Surah Al-Kahf, and this is the fifth and the final story of Surah Al-Kahf, which is the story about Zulqarnain. Zulqarnain literally means the one who has two horns, and you will recall that in the past when people the warriors used to wear helmets and they used to have two horns, and this was actually one of the symbols of Alexander the Great. Zulqarnain is not necessarily the Alexander the Great of Greek descent. It really, for one main reason, because Alexander the Great is described as an idol worshipper, is also described as a very cruel man, he's described as a very vicious and a very temperamental being, who sometimes even killed his own generals and his own soldiers. He was an absolutely ruthless person, really, and who does not fit the description that the Quran gives of the Zulqarnain here. So, I'd like you to not have that Alexander the Great in your mind, but the Zulqarnain the Quran talks about is someone very special. But on the other hand, it could be any just ruler. And of course, in the human history, there have been thousands of rulers, and amongst them certainly there have been many very, very good, fair, just and powerful rulers. And this is the one which the Quran is talking about, perhaps to give us an example that rulers should be like this, people who care for their people. Rulers should be men of justice, men of kindness and compassion towards their fellow human beings, and who should really be wanting to serve for the good of their communities and their societies, really. So let's begin this final story of Surah Al-Kahf about Sayyidina Zulqarnain. Allah says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ قُلْ سَأَتْلُو عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْهُ ذِكْرًا إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا حتى إذا بلغ مغرب الشمس وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة ووجد عندها قوما قلنا يا ذا القرنين إما أن تعذب وإما أن تتخذ فيهم حسنا قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا وأما من آمن وعمل صالحا فله جزاء الحسنى وسنقول له من أمرنا يسرا صدق الله مولانا العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الكريم. The Quran is telling us the story of Zulqarnain. Now, the story of Zulqarnain, the people of Makkah asked the Prophet, what is this? Who was Zulqarnain? And they were, the Makkans asked the Jews, tell us about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What do you know? What do you think about him? Okay, is he truthful and so on? And they said, well, ask him about few things. They said, first ask him about what is the soul, and also ask him who was Zulqarnain. And so if he can give you the right answers, then he's a prophet of God. So they asked the Prophet ﷺ this question, who was Zulqarnain? And the Prophet ﷺ answered them in this way. And he says to him, he tells them about Zulqarnain. So they ask you about Zulqarnain. Say, I will tell you something from his story. It's interesting. Not the whole story of Zulqarnain, but I'll tell you something about him. The Quran says, we established him with power on earth and gave him the ways and the means to achieve great things. Fa'atba sababa, and sababa I've translated here as the means and the ways to achieve great things. Okay? So he set off on a certain road until he reached the place where the sun sets in the west. He found it setting in a spring of murky water. He found some people nearby. We said, O Zulqarnain, you can either punish them or be kind to them. He said, whoever does wrong soon, we will punish him. But when he returns to his Lord, the punishment will be even greater. However, whoever believes and does good deeds will have a beautiful reward, and we will only tell him to carry out easy tasks. So, the Quran really tells us about three journeys of Zulqarnain. The first journey is towards the west. Now, it's interesting, if he's going to travel to the west, is he from the Middle East? So he's coming towards Greece, crossing the Mediterranean into Greece, and from there into Europe. So this is interesting. He's traveling towards the west. So this might be his journey. Allah knows. A lot of Mufassirin have speculated on where he would have gone, but Allah knows best. All we are really interested in is that he traveled a lot, and he did few things. And it's very interesting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, we said to him that you can either punish these people or be good to them. These were perhaps rebellious people. They were marauders, and they were really doing damage to the raiding the people around them. So, Allah said, well, sort them out, Zulqarnain. And Zulqarnain alayhi salam says to him, what I will do is, if they misbehave, I will punish them. And he says to them, look, I will punish you if you misbehave and you are rebellious, but remember that even if you escape me, the punishment of Allah is far greater in the hereafter. So that is one of his journeys. And then the Quran goes on to tell us that then ثُمَّ أَتْبَعَ sababa. The Quran says that he then went on, set off again on a certain road until he reached the place of sunrise. حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ مَطْلِعَ الشَّمْسِ وَجَدَهَا تَطْلُعُ عَلَى قَوْمٍ. So now he goes to east, and the Quran tells us that until he reached the place of the sunrise in the east. There he found people to whom we had not provided any means of shelter. So it was, we knew all about him. So Zulqarnain now goes to the east. He goes to people who don't have any kind of shelter, which, to me it seems as though these are people who live in jungle. They haven't got huts. They don't know how to build buildings. So effectively, they just live in the open, effectively. Very primitive, effectively. That's what they are. They're very primitive people. Then, they can't understand them. Zulqarnain can't understand them either. Okay. And then again, he travels to another place. Summa atba'a sababa. He then travels to another place. Hatta iza balagha bayna as-saddayn. Now he reaches another place. This is his third journey. So first is to the west, the second is to the east, the third, the Quran doesn't mention whether it is to the north or the south. It just says that, where there were two walls or possibly a pass, he was passing through. And here, the Quran says that he found people لا يقادون يفقهون قولا, who could not understand him at all. And they said to him that, look, Zulqarnain, these Yajuj and Majuj are really creating conflict and corruption on the land. Please, can you build a wall between us and them? There is a lot of debate amongst the Mufassirin on exactly who are the Yajuj Majuj, other than the fact that Zulqarnain, this just ruler, fair ruler, tackled the Yajuj Majuj of his own time, and he helped the helpless community who asked for help. And so he built this wall between the Yajuj Majuj and these poor and the weak community to protect them. And what is really interesting in all of this is that at the end he says that فَمَا اسْطَاعُوا أَن يَزْحَرُوهُ وَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا لَهُ نَقْبًا قَالَ هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَّبِّي فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي جَعَلَهُ دَكًّا وَكَانَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي حَقًّا. So here he says that they will not be able to make whole or be able to cross this. And this is the kindness of my Lord on me, and this is the promise that he has given us. And so here we notice that Zulqarnain alayhi salam has saved a weak community. And the question is, what do we learn from this story of Zulqarnain? Okay, well, I think the first thing we learn is that, in world politics and the rulers of the world, there's always the two groups, the unjust, unfair rulers, and then there are those who are just and fair and who serve humanity, who develop, and who are also busy, serving others. And this is really almost, one can say, a mirror for world leaders to look into and see which group they fall into. Are they Zulqarnain of the Quran, or are they Zulqarnain of the history, the Greek Macedonian Alexander, who was cruel and brutal and who just occupied land after land, country after country, killing the people on their way and destroying cities? Is that the kind of ruler you want to be? Or is it the one like this, who saves others, who defends others, who is really not despotic, but who is caring and compassionate ruler? We've been through 3 of the 5 stories of Surah Al-Kahf, so what is the conclusion of this surah? What is it that unites these 5 different incidences? For me, what I see as a thread that goes through the whole surah, what weaves it together, is this idea of traveling. There's a lot of traveling and movement in this surah. Did you see how the Ashabul Kahf traveled? Did you see how the rich and the poor man travel and walk to the garden? Okay. Then did you see how Musa and Hizr travel? Then how here Zulqarnain is also traveling about in the land. Subhanallah. The story, the lesson is that there is some barakah, there is some wisdom in traveling. Siru fil ard fanzur kayfa kana aqibatul muqadhdhibin, the Quran says. Travel about in the land and see what was the consequence of those who denied Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Traveling and learning from experience, seeing various people, diverse cultures, diverse landmarks, and diverse scenes. One learns. There is so much to learn out there and to appreciate the beauty of Allah's creation. So one thing is, in this surah we notice is this traveling. The other is, there seems to be a clash between power and weakness on one hand, wealth and poverty on the other hand. And we see that, the emperor who was after these young believing men and how they escaped. And we learn that it isn't the prowess, it isn't the power that you have through military means or any other, or through wealth, that gives you longevity. That isn't real strength. The real strength is the strength of character. The Quran is teaching us, materialism and worldly power is bound to fade. It wanes. Whereas the power of spirituality, the belief in Allah, the love of Allah, and good character always increases. The poor man and the weak and the rich man's clash showed who won at the end. The wealth disappeared, the orchard was destroyed. So the lessons we learn in Surah Al-Qaf are that material wealth has its limits. Bear that in mind. And because we live in a very materialistic age, and I think this is why Rasulullah ﷺ recommended that during this period, on every Friday, read this surah and reflect on its meaning and see how the people of material power and those who have armaments, those who have nuclear power even they will not win at the end of the day. Winning and supremacy lies in the hands of those who are compassionate, who are just and fair, and those who love to serve humanity and to do good for humanity. That is the underlying lesson of Surah Al-Qaf. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to understand this wonderful message that at the end it is spirituality, love of Allah that wins. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Allahu Ghafoor, Allahu Rahim.